Hello! La la la. Wasn't that a Seinfeld episode? It was. How are you tonight?
Oh, living, loving, experimenting.
Excellent. We have a Berry Bot.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
That timing couldn't have been more
perfect. Perfect.
Good evening. Welcome to episode. It's episode 32 already.
Right.
That blows my mind. Of Lawfully Chaotic. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, Berry Bot is going to lead us in a discussion about how to become a first-time DM, or how to improve your DM skills if you already are one. Before we start that, does anybody have any announcements? Jason?
Well, it's official. Table number 10 is posted. And I've already got one person signed up. I've made some modifications to the timing of it. So that Divergence campaign is going to kick off with that table. And it will eventually replace all my other 4 tables that are soon to expire, including the one that Miss Berrybot is on as well. We will discuss that framework with the group. They've already seen the summary, I think. I posted the summary of it. So it's going to be dark. It's going to be rough. It's going to be... It's as close as you can get to Greyhawk without it being stupid like Greyhawk. So
nice.
I'm super excited about low magic, super high fantasy with the Spelljammer theme tucked in there as well, to have a lot of fun with that. So,
awesome. That sounds like a blast.
Yeah,
very cool.
And it's going to be a whole new framework of campaign that's kicking off with my 10th table. That is each of my other tables deprecate and wrap up, which are all coming up on there a little over a year mark. Because in our topic, when Berrybot hits our topic tonight, I will talk about how long a campaign should be based on your seasoning within being the DM GM space, because I think that I've learned some valuable lessons about that recently. So
awesome. Cool.
I'm super excited about this new framework. I get to play with Spelljammer. I get to play with the prehistory of all of the lands of Exandria. It's all just like it's a sandbox this time, and I think it's going to be sweet. We may even establish gods for the first time.
Ooh, can I be one? Awesome. That sounds fantastic. I can't wait to hear more about that. Sharon, how are you tonight?
Hi, I'm doing good. I kind of had to do like a mad dash from work today, so sorry everyone for the wait.
No worries. Any announcements that you have? What's going to happen to Mira when Graying Lands ends? She going to tree walk into another campaign?
Well, she's certainly going to try to survive. That's for sure.
Yeah, she's going to try not to have the world end so abruptly, and just prancing in fields at the end. That's the goal.
Awesome. What could be better than that?
That's everybody's epilogue.
Sweet. Cool. So this Saturday I am running a one-shot for a bachelor party.
Woo.
Yeah. And I have pulled a piece of my homebrew campaign out and expanded upon the story arc. And it's been really, really awesome because I think, as I've told you guys, I'm writing this homebrew. I have the overall story arc in my head, but I'm writing it as I go. So I'm using...
Cool, that's
Excuse
fun.
me. Yeah, I'm using 2 groups to kind of play test it. So for Saturday, I've pulled this chapter out, and I've expanded upon it. And it's been really awesome because I've expanded the shit out of it. And I've got a whole cast of characters that I've actually, I've been using just NPC stat blocks for them in the past, but now I've got them fleshed out as characters and whatnot. So I'm really excited about that. And since this is in person for the first time, I've done some little creative work. So I've made these for each of the
man.
players. So inside is a field notes player journal, which I sell on my site, and a bunch of my
Nice.
stickers. And it's called An Offer You Can't Refuse. And I also felt so creative today that I made 5 of these.
Wow, fireball.
Yeah, so it's like, somebody launches a fireball and it explodes, and where does all the rest of that fire go? It sets the building on fire. So these turned out really well.
Yeah, for those listening, Brian has made a handheld fireball that glows.
Yeah, it's awesome. I made like 5 of those. That was not my idea. I saw it on somebody else's feed. I don't remember whose, but I will find it and give them credit when I post that on my feed. So
But in the
it was-
meantime, you'll take all the credit.
in the
Brian.
meantime, I'll take all the credit, at least for how they turned out. I used my airbrush today. It was like it was an arts and crafts day, basically. I didn't feel like doing any real work, so I did some fun stuff today. So anyway, I'm really looking forward to running this one shot in person on Saturday, and I hope to do more of that here in Chicago. So
That's awesome.
thank you.
You gotta be careful though, because if there's imbibing involved, that fireball might actually become airborne. So just
Well,
Good
I
thing
mean,
it
it
looks
weighs pretty
soft.
much. It weighs pretty much nothing. So, yeah. Anyway, on that note, Sharon, why don't you? Hey, Fatal Excrement. I love that name. Thank you for joining us. Wear stickers. You want some stickers? DM me your shipping info, and I'll send you some stickers.
Hey, there you go.
As a thank you for joining us. Yeah. So, Sharon, what's our topic tonight?
Well, tonight, everyone, I will be interviewing these 2 lovely DMs right here. I think I'm pointing in the right direction. And we are going to talk about all things DMing. And if you have any questions, chat, feel free to shout those out, because we are going to pick these guys' brains and hopefully learn a thing or two. So
and find out how much we don't know.
yeah, gonna be a lot of quiet moments. So come on, chat.
Can you repeat the question, please? Can you repeat the question? I do not recall.
Play elevator music. All right, everyone.
Cool.
So to kick off tonight's episode of Lawfully Chaotic, we are going to start at the very, very beginning. From your days of youth, think of the very first time you DM'd. What did it feel like? What were your feelings? Were you nervous to perform in front of your friends or accomplices or family or just strangers? What did you do to prepare for this session? And were there anybody in your lives that kind of helped you guide into being a DM? And I will start with Brian.
Can you repeat the question, please? I don't have any recollection of that night. I'm sorry.
It's just a blank slate.
Yeah, he takes the 5th.
It's like it's just like the sound of like whooshing air. That's it.
Yeah. So it's funny because way back when I was a youngling, I actually did not do any DMing in the early days. I was always a player. Yeah, we had one of our crew. He might be on here in a bit. Gary Ugrun. We kind of forced. We all wanted to play, so we kind of just forced him to DM us and everything. So it wasn't until maybe 3 or 3.5 or something that I started to get it. There you are, Gary. Right. So poor Gary used to always be the DM, but excited to be starting as a player in his campaign in a couple weeks. So yeah, it's I would say. Yeah, we didn't progress much. We changed our minds a lot. I mean, we were kids, we get tired of characters and it was a different game back then, as we've talked about many times. So I really delved into DMing much later, and then really got into it just about, I don't know, maybe, well, about the time Critical Role was out and whatnot. But I've been writing. Actually, you know what? That's not true. I told you this was going to be. This is going to show how much I don't
So
know.
were you
That's
like,
not true. I did run a campaign when we were kids. I remember that. It was this big, huge, undead, like grandiose, epic that was based on a Lich King and undead armies and stuff like that, because I was really into that
Wow.
stuff. So I do remember that. But I would say just over the past like 8 years or so is where I've really, really developed my DM skills, and just, dove into it. And now I DM more than I play. So yeah, it's interesting because my early years were mostly as a player, not a DM.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Jason, what were your Eon years as a first time DM?
Unmitigated pizza, Jolt Cola, and
Yeah.
it was, if it rained, we went out and played mud football, and then, in the evening we gamed all night. I think, there were. There was. I had one young year.
You
It's
just came
funny.
out with the beard.
Well, it's funny that he says that, because I think that's what roped me into playing all the games, or running all the games. We had one game master who ran all of our Gangbusters games, because it was his favorite title, so he loved playing that one. But I was the one when I was, when we first started playing at age 9. We sat down at the dinner table on a Friday and we played until Monday morning and got ready for school. It was my storytelling. Everybody loved the way that I was only like 9-10 years old, but by the time I was 7, I read The Hobbit. So, they're like, oh,
That's
great,
awesome.
here comes the English lit major at age 9. So, and it allowed for young people to banter and have fun with the fact they could actually understand what was going on. And we really enjoyed the game. I would say for the first 2 years, all we played was the Keep on the Borderlands. I mean, we played that forever. It was just one of our favorite games because it was so wide open. You could just do it forever. And that pretty much set me on the path for the Forever GM, where it was just, oh, Jason's available. Let's go play at his house, And I never looked back. Absolutely loved it. I had, they tried the rotation one time, but it became so difficult to get people to show up unless they knew I was GMing. So it was like, once you accept the angst, then just live with the angst. Yeah. And pat yourself on the back, and move forward. So, because if I realized if I didn't do it, then we weren't going to play. So, and I love playing too much. I love playing.
So, if you recall your very first sessions, did you guys ever put in railroads? And is that a recommended thing to do for first-time DMs?
Absolutely. It's all I did for the first 2 years. I experimented with the idea of the game, and my sessions were purely railroading people into the content of what I was reading from a module. I was just really good at making it sound like it wasn't a railroad, but I was definitely railroading. Absolutely. And I feel like it's okay to do that, because you got to, like any other skill set, you got to practice those muscles first, and you got to fail as fast as you can and practice, and then experiment with the open world stuff and have fun with it. And that's how you build your confidence. And so, yeah, the first 2 years, absolutely. I mean, I was the choo-choo. Absolutely.
The choo-choo.
I was.
Yeah, I think since I played for so many years before DMing, I didn't really have a lot of trepidation when I started DMing. For me, it was just kind of natural. I got to be the storyteller. And like Jason said, I tend to also write, very linear storylines. So I kind of railroad also, But likewise, I always am very careful about making it not seem like they're being railroaded. And one thing I love doing is little side arcs. If the characters insist on, let's go to a tavern and see if there's any, we got 4 days till we need to do, phase B of our mission. Let's go to a tavern and see if anybody needs any help. And if that leads to a 2 or 3 session side arc that then kind of comes back, so be it. I don't mind doing that, but I always pull them back into the main story. So I do that. I have done that, and I still do it. But it's got to feel. It can't be apparent to your players, because then they kind of lose the impetus to really role play and make decisions.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I never really thought of like the side arcs, because that gives the GM or DM the opportunity to really like flex their creative muscle for like storytelling and story building. So that could be just like little small bite-sized pieces to actually help try to create your very own campaign from the ground up. That's really cool.
Yeah, like Vince said, it really does need to feel organic, and and I'll just finish up real quick by saying I've mentioned this before, but in one of my campaigns, I had this side arc that ended up. It was in the Horde of the Dragon Queen, so it had nothing to do with the story. They just kind of needed a break. I needed a break, from the storyline, and we did this side arc that I fully pulled, and now have the one shot that I'm running this weekend is based on that, and that is now a major plot element in my homebrew. And it was completely out of the blue and improv, and they loved it so much. I'm like, I'm taking this and making a campaign out of it. So,
wow, just by chance.
yeah, totally. None of it was planned.
Oh, the dirty look I just got from my daughter. She came to fetch her phone because she finished her homework, and she just looked at me like I had just. Oh, I hate being the bad guy, but I'm so tired of it. And I think she's probably more mad at her brother, because her brother kind of destroyed everything by, not doing his homework on time. I don't railroad anymore, though. I don't use railroads at all anymore, but that took time.
Right.
That took a lot of practice.
Well, yeah, that's my point, Torch, is I will not railroad someone to the point where I will not allow them to make their own decisions.
Right. I never take agency or consent away.
Yeah, if it totally goes off the rails, so be it. I'll deal with it.
But to Sharon's original question, starting off, that was hard.
Yeah.
At the beginning, that was really, really hard. I mean, it got to the point where I would memorize a module.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would write little anecdotes within the works. I put little pages in there, little folded up graph paper with little anecdotes on it, giving me options just in case. Because the modules were pretty descriptive. And I'm like, well, if I describe something really well, what's to prevent them from going and checking it out? Right. Even though the module just kind of gave it some descriptive flavor.
You're in a room with 3 doors. Doors 1 and 3 are really boring. Door 2, now door 2 is really interesting.
It's true. And learning and starting off by learning, it's hard. It's not easy. You've got all the personal emotions to get over. You've got all the challenges of organization. And we could go down lots of rabbit holes around that. But as far as the question's concerned, I used to use it. It was hard, but it taught me a lot of tricks and trades so that I could easily transition into open world as quickly as possible.
So for situations like that, how do you balance a game? Like, have there ever been instances where you've underprepared or overprepared for a game? Like, how do you balance that out? Especially when you have players that maybe go outside of the bounds of the module that you just started, and it's taking even a more wider turn outside of your comfort zone.
I'll let Brian start with that one.
There have been many times where I have over prepared. It's like when Matt Mercer brings out his his
Chaos
weekend long
is the balance.
miniature map, and they completely skirt it, and he's like, fuck you guys. But again, if I've over prepared and the character, and the players do something else, I just put that aside and I'll figure out how to bring it back. And there have been plenty of times where I've under prepared, and I've found that when I under prepare, I really then let the players' decisions drive what happens.
Really?
Yeah, and that's where I start opening it up some more and letting them really dictate what's going on. And again, that could either keep them on track naturally or lead to some other fun. I mean, an example is I don't know how long most people run a published module. Okay, like Horde of the Dragon Queen is levels essentially 1 through what, 12, 11,
Something like that. Yeah.
something like that. So how Jason, how long would you run that module?
Well, it's a series though, right?
Well, the Curse of Strahd is a short module.
Well, it's
too.
Horde of the Dragon Queen and then Rise of Tiamat.
Right.
Okay,
So,
and that's 1 through 20, but just Horde of the Dragon Queen.
once again, I mean, in my youth, I probably would have ran it in a single weekend.
The whole book, 12 levels.
Well, yeah, because we would have started Friday night and not finished
Okay.
until Monday morning, right?
Oh, so nowadays, off the top of your head, how long would it take you to run a 12-level module?
Nowadays, knowing what I know, it could take
Mhm.
6 months.
Okay. I stretch that out to about 18 months, maybe 18 to 20 months. Okay.
Interesting.
Because there was a lot of these side arcs and a lot of nights where it was just, all right, the players clearly want to do this, so let's go with it. Okay. We never deviated from the story so much that we didn't get back on track and continue it. But that's an example of, you can, in my opinion, you can fit in open world into even a published module
Oh yeah.
without destroying it. And the secret, I think that there's the most important thing for being a DM is improv and acting. And I don't say that meaning doing character voices and all this. I mean going with the flow and making decisions on the fly that seem like you had things planned. Okay. If the players, no matter what you do, if you make it look like you had everything planned, then that keeps the consistency in the game, and that is what players will respond to, in my opinion. If you're kind of fumbling around and this and that, that's where the theater of the mind starts to break down, and the metagaming enters and whatnot. So if you can make it seem like, oh yeah, I had this all planned, then I think that's the secret to being a good DM.
To the preparedness, like the idea of the over preparedness or the under prepared.
Mhm.
No matter what happens as you learn and as you mature, you will always be under prepared. That's never going to change. To Brian's point, learning skills like improvisation and adaptation are the two skills that keep.
See, and as a kid back then, that never occurred to me,
Yeah.
Gary.
Wow.
I mean, that's why we always, mostly because we could force you to do it, but that was not the only reason. We had you DM because we never felt like, it was like, fumbling around.
So I always felt underprepared. And the only way I knew how to solve that is to take copious notes and have a lot of optional notes ready to go just in case. Now, I was practicing the art of being over-prepared, but in the recognition of what I was doing, that was in itself using improv skills and adaptation skills based on my underpreparedness, and eventually beginning to realize I was becoming over-prepared. Neither of which is really a negative, because if there have been a couple sessions in my recent time professionally hosting where I got some sessions kind of convoluted and thought I had prepared for one, and I inadvertently prepared for two other ones for some future meeting. I looked at my notes and I went, oh shit, all my asterisks are gone. all of my
Poof.
shit. Okay, here we go. Let's do the recap and let's get
That's
started.
never happened to me. Only an idiot would do something like that. Like, oh, let's have a show this week about this, and then we'd have a show about something else.
Brian in French is idiot. Anyways.
Well,
That was, that was a dig on me from last week. By the way.
It's so cool to see like the different variations between you two. So like every DM is different, and I think you just have to, I guess, know yourself and know your mind and how it works around these storytelling situations.
So 3 Mile Down plays in one of my pro tables. Stalking the captain below deck and finding their lost heir bullywog lover. Yeah, like a lot of players stumble on an arc so early. I'm like, oh fuck. Shit, I didn't think anyone would do that because the captain's supposed to be super scary. And then recently they stumbled on a part of another arc because they're deep into the Shattered Teeth right now. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing okay then. That means they feel that the world's open enough for them to experiment in. You know what I mean? So it's like, it was pretty cool. It's a cool feeling. It's a cool feeling. I got that feeling when the Grain Lands group, the Grain Lands group this Sunday is in for a real rough session. It's going to be a hard session because they're going to have to tread in areas that could be a little challenging to their confidence. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how they, as players, address it through their characters. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Cool. I love that big.
That was a very trepidatious.
That was very.
I've even been working on the artwork for the twins. So.
Sharon, it sounds like you better start making a second character.
Oh, goody.
Gork is like, we'll be fine.
Just bash a few heads. It's okay. That's how we get through conversation. All right. So that was actually a pretty good first session. Section.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. So after doing your very first session, what is it exactly that makes it like, is it easier to play with a table full of friends, or is it better to do it with complete strangers?
Oh, that's
you want to take this one first?
Yeah, because that's a real tough one because I have to be reflective about it. At first, friends and family made it easier for me at first because the expectations weren't nearly as extreme as they are now. The expectations back there were just to kind of better game or more fun. I don't see a difference between the two. It's only fun because it's a good game. Plain and simple.
Well,
if you go to a game if you go to a game and it feels like like work, then you need to find another game.
No, not that it feels like work, but I think what Gary means is probably like, you know, the laughing and joking around about all the inside jokes for a group of longtime friends that don't really have anything to do with the game. Part of just the experience of playing together outside of.
Yeah, I get your feedback. And what I would say then is I actually fell out of love playing with friends and family because they couldn't leave their personal shit off the table. Like they couldn't keep personal baggage out of the idea that every subtext was a dig on their personal life somehow, because we all knew each other, right? So those digs became a problem, right? And what I've discovered over my 41 years of playing, the second half of playing with strangers was far more fun and a better game with that feedback. A much better game and a lot more fun when I play with strangers. That's how I would answer that.
I'm gonna take the easy route and say that I enjoy both. I really do. I think with friends it's easier. Like Gary said, I think it's easier to, experiment a little bit. Because friends are can be more forgiving. I guess it depends on your friends.
They can be pretty ruthless too.
They can, but it's all usually all in good fun.
Yeah.
And it is just, it is a different feel. I have found that I also really, really enjoy playing with strangers because I think it makes you kind of step it up a level. and it makes you look at the game from a little bit different perspective. You have to be more, you know, how to engage with your friends and whatnot, and with strangers you kind of have to figure that out. You have to figure out as a DM how to get them to engage in game and whatnot. Now, I mean, I've had groups of strangers that just did not, you know, gel and did not work, and that's fucking disastrous. But I've also had groups, I mean, like my Wednesday group, we've been playing together for 2.5 years. So I really enjoy the different feel of both.
To Ugrin's original point and to your expansion of the feedback, Bri, it is wonderful to watch a table of strangers become friends.
Totally.
That's a pretty amazing feeling. And I think that might be more of the addicted feeling I have now. I know I was probably being a little glib about the friend, family, stranger thing, because obviously Callista and everybody in our Monday night game are friends and family, right? Obviously. Comparatively to being a new DM versus a seasoned DM, being a new DM, to Barry's point, it's a lot easier to deal with it with friends and family. You know, it becomes easier because you do automatically know everyone, and it allows you to build up confidence over time. Once you become seasoned and you feel your confidence is ready to go, I feel like switching to stranger only tables can be very rewarding to the skill sets that you're maturing over time, because I now feel like I have 50 new friends.
Yeah.
50 people I didn't know before, but I now have 50, some are acquaintances and some are friends, you know, and that's a very unique thing about D&D.
Yeah.
It could turn a group of people into hard and fast friends, or it can become toxic if you're not careful. But that's the uniqueness of the game, I think.
That occurred to me just the other day. It's funny you bring that up, because I don't know what I was thinking about or whatever, but I realized like, wow, I know like 30 new people, new friends who I've never met in person, but who I talk to and see every week. You know, it's kind of amazing. And there's one other thing I was going to say about strangers. Oh yeah, I totally agree with you about seeing a table of strangers turn into friends.
Oh, it's just
I think
addicting.
that is really fantastic.
It's like when I watch, like, playing with Barrybot and Fatal and the rest of them on Sundays. They were Saturdays. Sorry, I get all my days end in Y. That's why they're all confusing. Watching them turn from a chaotic group of strangers, kind of just doing their own thing for the first few months. Yeah. You know, as a chaotic group of strangers kind of doing their own thing and finding their feet, and then suddenly watching them just turn into these amazing, like, watching their group gel. Right now just watching somebody like watching Abraxas become the mother hen. You know what I mean? He became the mother hen for a while. It was fun watching the role play of that come out, and I think, you know, it's very affirming.
I'm just seeing him with feathers. Sorry.
Yeah, they'll be
born with feathers.
They'll be metallic, golden, silver, platinum feathers with his panache for fashionista that he is.
So in other words, you guys like to play matchmaker. Is that what
a little bit? It is kind of fun watching it happen. It's actually really fun watching two of your players who are just casual friends in real life kind of become, you know, intimate characters in the game. That's kind of fun to watch happen, because you get to watch their maturity play out. I am very jaded in the fact that I don't have a lot of young tables, right? All my tables range between the ages of 18 and probably 30, you know, in that average range. I know I've got variances there.
Wait. What's your definition of a young table? Like kids?
Yeah, kids. To me, kids would be young. Like, you know, between 12 and 15 feels like a very challenging opportunity. It's not one that I feel confident about. The last time I did it really well. It was fun, and I surprised myself. I did it for a birthday party, where a group came in, a family, you know, came in.
I know, same thing.
So it was. I need to practice that more, and I recognize that I need to practice a younger table more.
I've run a number of games for kids, both strangers and for my son and some of his school buddies, and it is very challenging. Mostly just from the standpoint of herding cats, especially remotely, but it is surprisingly rewarding because, as we all know, kids of that age do not think like we do. And talk about side arcs and going off the rails, but in a good way. Like, holy shit, you want to do what? I would have never thought about that, and I have no fucking preparation for that at all.
Yeah.
So it could be really fun playing kids. They're sharper than you think.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So for DMing your first game, is it best to do it with peers, whether it's stranger or friends or
That's
family?
a good question.
That is a good question.
It's a really good question, because I didn't have any, because no one was playing the game yet, right? I mean, no one was playing it at any kind of measurable level. I was 9 in 1980, so most of the group that was playing it, we were playing it from the core 70s rules, and they were very much a club-driven group still at that point. I got to learn how to play it in its transition into mainstream, right, which felt very strange. I would say playing with your peers could be very informative, but could be very intimidating as well.
See, I disagree, actually.
And the reason why I say intimidating is because if your confidence level isn't quite matured yet, it could be intimidating. But I also see that playing with your peers could be the most productive and rewarding way to play, because their feedback could elevate your confidence so quickly that you find yourself absorbing their knowledge and their information in a much more efficient manner, I think.
Right.
I'm going to say I would recommend starting at least the first couple of times with peers or friends, because I don't see that as intimidating. I see that as getting rid of the aspect of the fear of how are these people who I don't know going to react to me? Are they going to accept me? Kind of the public speaking fear. All of that should theoretically go away, okay? Because you're already comfortable with them. So I think it's the perfect place to develop those skills and as you said, Jason, get some feedback, but not feel afraid to fail. Okay. Obviously your friends, they're gonna razz you, of course, but it's not going to be like, oh, this guy's, they're not going to go on Yelp and say this guy sucks as a paid DM or a DM and fucking whatever.
Right.
So I actually think that is probably the best way to start, is with friends or a group of people that you are comfortable interacting with.
Okay, so that way it's easier to get some feedback between the players and the DM. That's really good.
Well, basically, you can focus on the game and not have to focus on, the meeting people aspect.
Right. Yeah, I think you made a good point about the DM having.
Well, not you, assholes.
I was just about to say the public speaking.
If you guys could see our daily Slack chats, you'd be mortified. It's like, these people are friends.
Next month, I'm going to DM for some strangers for a non-TTRPG Discord server who are newbies. I'm not sure how I feel yet. Guys, do you have any tips for Torch? Tips,
just
tricks,
put on your confidence face and project that. Again, if you look like you know what you're doing, and I'm not saying that you can't make mistakes, but if you look like that you are in control, probably that's not the best phrase, but if you look like you're in control, I think people will be engaged with your storytelling, and I think it should work fine.
Is there like a certain hook that you think of that kind of gets you in that zone of of having that illusion of confidence? Like, do you have
I have one that I just love to use, and it excites me every time I use it. I go around the table and start with each individual, and I say, and I ask them, "Tell me about your D&D journey so far." And that
Interesting.
excites them to know that I care about that, which means I'm already establishing the vibe at the table. So I could have no skill, I could be underprepared, I could have just a single sentence written that says, "The rats are going to try to kill them in the hallway." And I could turn that into a 3-hour session if I had to. But if you can get the vibe of the table instantly, get them talking and feeling comfortable with you instantly, and make that instance feel very important to each of them as individuals, you'll hear that collective sigh at the table. You'll just hear it. Yeah, well, that would explain my inability to do common math. My math teachers faked it for a long time.
Torch, since they're new, I'm probably going to run the equivalent of a video game tutorial level just to get them familiar with the
that's
mechanics.
genius.
Well,
that's how I would
Yeah.
describe it. Yep.
Yeah,
that's
I would
exactly
say,
correct.
pick something that you are familiar with and comfortable with. Like, one thing I always go to is back to Fellowship of the Ring. What I loved about that in this whole epic journey is how small it started. It's always like, it starts so small, and the most inane thing seems so big to the main characters, compared to what they end up doing. So start with something small and intimate, something that you're familiar with, something that you feel connected to, and kind of immerse everybody there. I like that, asking Jason what your player's D&D journey has been so far. I generally start out by asking them to describe their characters, which is a common thing, but that too kind of it's like a good icebreaker. Start with a bar fight. Well, naturally.
Start with chaos.
I like, and I think you do have to keep in mind, and it's safe to keep this in mind, because it's a reality of the groups that you'll run into, whether they be new or veterans or somewhere in between. Social media and video watching is a common process these days.
Oh, 3 miles. I still, to me, when you say D&D, if to put that on the screen, it's still Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
100%.
And I think just be aware, just be cognizant of the fact that people are going to be influenced by a very deep amount of viewable stuff that's going to impact their own individual perspective of how they think their first game is going to be, either with you or as a first game they've ever played, depending on the situation. But there is a very special notion to the idea of how they're going to automatically feel with you, because you're willing to take on the risk and the adventure of being the DM or GM. And I think that will matter to the table. So you always have that little bit of a safety blanket that says, they've already given me that level of trust.
The benefit
now I
of
just
the
need
doubt.
to earn the rest of it through this first adventure. And it'll come. It'll come.
I think Matt and Gary pointed out something that is important too, is everybody likes to roll dice, okay, in this game. So listening to the characters, to what they want to do, and not and Matt said this, not being so glued to the rules, but let them explore a little. It's like, okay, I want to climb up this wall and shoot my bow and whatever, yada yada yada, and figure out what roll works, and let them roll dice, even if they're walking down the street and trying to find a food vendor. Like, what kind of food are you looking for? Make a perception check, to see if you smell pizza or something like that. I mean, little things like that can help ease the mood at the table.
Yeah. So, in other words, for your first campaign, just give it a kiss. Keep it simple, silly.
Yep.
Yeah. Just remember the kiss, you guys.
Yep. I always smell pizza.
So now we're going to be, making our segue towards actually building a campaign, which is perfect. So, what style of campaigns would you recommend for a first-time DM, and what should they do to prepare? Like, what would they need access to for how long, where the game will run? Asking the what ifs.
I mean, this is where I almost always pop in. If it's your first time running it and your first time building something and you really want to give yourself the ability to experiment, sometimes I'll recommend a one shot if you know the table enough in advance. If the table's an unknown factor and you're meeting for the first time, you probably want to fall back on the zero session mentality and let the table kind of help you define what your next steps are. If you're dealing with a table of veteran players and you're the first time DMing, that's a significant challenge. That's a challenge.
Terrifying.
That's a risk. It's nerve-wracking. It's terrifying. I just want to curl up in a fetal ball and cry in my bathtub and never come out again. Those are normal, natural ways to feel. Read your content, do your maps, write your notes, do all the things that you feel are cathartic to your creative process, and then go to the table and see how it turns out. It could be a total flop, it could be amazing, but I would say that from all three stylizations of attempts, you at least tried. Most people never try, and I think trying is the most important step to always hurdle over first. Once you've tried that first time, most of the fear, I feel like, will melt away.
Yeah, I would add to that by saying, unless you're forcing players to go through something that they've been through before or really don't want to go through, I think the zero session idea is fantastic. But as a first-time DM, I would do yourself a favor and pick a very linear, pre-published campaign or module. Don't worry about homebrewing and making stuff up, and something like Strahd or Tomb of Annihilation or something like that that's completely open sandbox is going to be difficult. So again, pick something very linear and on the simpler side, and start with that. And yeah, that too, something short. You can always extend rather than, picking something that lasts 15 levels and having to cut halfway through.
So I'm curious, is it best to have an RP heavy campaign, or should it be like more RPG and then it is RPG, more RP and then a lot of I had to catch myself. Sorry, guys.
Sharon, is this your first time DMing?
Oh my gosh! I'm so nervous.
You're doing wonderfully.
I was thinking if I were to ever DM, I think I would just hide behind the DM screen because I have a terrible poker face.
I can see Barry. I know. I can see Barry now. Are you really sure you want to do that? Because I've given you a lot of information that would indicate it's a really bad idea.
You sure you want to do that? Oh, I love fucking with my players that way. You sure you want to do that? Yeah. Okay. Nothing happens.
My favorite is when they're RPing and then one of them will stop and go, "Uh-oh, he just rolled a dice."
You're a metric CM, yes.
So I guess to your point, the style of play for your first time, right?
Yes.
As a newer DM,
God damn it! I still can't get that right. Jesus.
As a newer DM, that's always going to be a struggle for a while.
I forgot what the question was.
Is it better to have an role play?
Oh, a role play versus okay, yeah.
I think at first a short, mechanically driven game with the bare notes of some RPing originating from the DM to build confidence out to the table, because the table may not want to do voices, they may not want to RP, may not. That's where the beginning of your leadership kind of comes in. Show your vulnerability, show your empathy for the first time, and really, turn them into your muse to a certain degree, and then build off those confidences that you create in that process. but it's all about repetition sometimes, right? The more tables you play and the more unique encounters you have with people, the more you begin to judge and organize the idea of RP play, mechanic play, a blend of the two. I've always described myself as an 80-20, right? 80% narrative, 20% encounter driven. And once you find that space, it becomes a little bit easier to express that to people, So that's a tough question. That's a hard one.
Yeah. I would, I also ask my players, what kind of game, before we start,
Yeah.
what kind of game are you looking for? Do you like heavy RP? Do you like, lots of combat, and kind of let that lead a little bit? But Gary actually basically said what I was going to say is just interact with NPCs.
Yeah.
I still think that the best way to role play and drum up interest in a very simple way is go shopping. I have had a 3-hour session of nothing but shopping, and my players fucking loved it because I had very well thought out personas, some of them totally off the top of my head, some of them written down. Yeah. Of these shopkeepers and specific things that they were looking for, for this mission and whatnot. And it's a really easy way to do some safe RP that's not necessarily going to blow up your track, in the story.
Yeah, and that's something familiar to do for everybody too. So that's
totally
actually...
yeah.
And gelato for some reason. That's great. I love that.
So it's best to ask your players what kind of game they're looking for.
Yeah, and I also think to that point, it establishes the openness of the DM to show that immediate willingness to get feedback from the players. A common narrative I hear, whether it's true or false, is always hard to tell, is that people describe previous games that the DM just wouldn't listen to them. Like it was always their prerogative, always their, it's always their approach or there's no approach. It's always this, it's always them, it's them. The DM do it, the DM makes the final decision. And that's rough because, that ends a lot of games for people. So I would say to Brian's point, be willing to listen to the table, get that first 20 minutes going and just, if you've written a game and you've got this great dungeon crawl in mind and you just found out that everyone sitting at your table loves anime, don't panic. Make the dungeon crawl an anime theme. So that's where the adaptation and the improvisation comes in. Suddenly, instead of a cavern full of bugbears, it's a cavern full of monks that all, speak manga style bad dubbing, and have some fun with it.
You want to fight? Fight me now.
Yeah, exactly.
His level is over 5,000. Oh.
Somewhere down
we
the
have
hallway,
been to destroy you.
Somewhere down the hallway, you hear, finish them.
Oh my God. Mortal Kombat.
Right? And to the earlier Ugrin question about better versus fun, we just described a way to make it fun.
Yeah.
And then it will inadvertently get better each time you kind of run into these situations. I think is a good way to kind of look at it.
I think I'll add to that by saying, I think obviously, the DM is part of the game too. Okay. Some people look at a DM as you're just a tool so that we can play, which I think is ridiculous. And others, the DM is a player too. You are playing the game. Okay. Yeah. So you need to have fun also. However, if your players are not enjoying themselves, then what is the point of you even running a game? It just, everything falls apart. And especially in a paid game, if somebody's paying you, it's not about you as a DM. It's
Absolutely
about the players.
Not. No.
Okay. You're providing a paid service.
Yeah.
You're not going to go to a restaurant and pay for dinner and the waiter says, I'm going to give you calves brains tonight. Okay. So, you definitely need to. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to, it doesn't mean that you have to take every suggestion or whatnot. Maybe 3DS.
Well, and I think what Torchseer is saying here is that your initial assumption about peers is correct. You know, having a lot of peers around to be able to absorb what they do and absorb it in a way that they're not telling you what to do. That's the key to the success, is that I never tell anyone what to do.
Yeah.
That's never going to breed success. What breeds success is a shared level of information, so that when people hear your information, they're free to absorb any part of it that they think makes sense to what they're trying to do. Thank you,
that gets back to railroading somebody through the story without them feeling like they're being railroaded.
Yeah.
Okay.
The art of curating the lie.
Yes. Fake it till you make it.
It's a real thing. It's a real thing. But you could curate it well. You could do it safely and responsibly, I think.
Oh, that's a good one too, Gary. Yeah. If you're starting with a new group, if you have somebody that knows you and is an experienced player, that could be immensely helpful for a DM.
Like a co-pilot.
That can be a very good.
There are folks that use co-DMs. That's a good point, where two DMs actually run a table. Where
I've never seen that.
Well, so if you ever get a chance, they're on Twitch and they're on YouTube. I've been watching them since they were on Caffeine TV. They're called Dungeon Run, and their new season, because Jeff Kanata is going through some significant challenges right now, and so the other groups are running
Kanata
for him.
Kanata play.
So they have co-DMs. So there's two DMs in that group, and basically you have your main DM that I believe is the narrative DM, and then the other DM is balancing out the mechanics, so that the narrative DM doesn't feel overwhelmed by the mechanics, and the mechanics don't overwhelm the storytelling.
Yeah.
So that's become a practice.
Yeah.
It's been a practice. It's been around for a while.
Yeah, but even as Gary suggests, even a player who you know, and that can also, because
as
sometimes
long as they respect meta, as long as they respect the idea of meta.
Yes, yeah. But just starting off an RP exchange with them, it'll naturally shepherd everybody else into, oh, now I know what to do, or the rules and the mechanics, and that's a very good tactic also.
And since we were talking about creating your first world, right, Barry, don't be afraid to even use a module. Like if you're using a module, don't be afraid to look up some side notes for puzzles. And if you find that they're going off in a direction you don't feel comfortable for them to go on, throw a puzzle in front of them that inadvertently steers them back. But they still get to have the side arc fun, the open choice fun, but it allows you to guide them continuously without it feeling like you're guiding them. So don't be afraid with when a built world is in front of you. Go ahead and add your own doors and your own pathways and your own thoughts to it. So it kind of makes you feel a little bit more comfortable about the choices they might make.
And not to confuse things, the DM can be in complete control. Okay, as long as you are willing to take what the players are giving you and incorporate that. What Jason was describing are the DMs that don't do that and just say, oh, this is the way it's going to be. That's a shitty DM. All right. You can run things the way you want. You can be in control as long as you take that information that the players are giving and incorporate that so that they feel that they are truly part of the game and not just, going through the mechanics. No pun intended.
Right. That's actually such a new thing for me to hear, is about the co-DMing. And also what brings to mind is the very first time that Sam Riegel DM'd that for the, what was that campaign called? He was wearing a glitter suit. He was just a glittery man.
That tells us nothing.
I know.
That could be every third Thursday.
I know.
Yeah, but I remember that episode specifically because he was so nervous, but there was actually people at the table who knew how to play the game that were walking him through it, and it made it more. He was actually more comfortable to play by the end of the session. So,
and that's all it takes. That's all it can take is one session.
And in order to do that one session, all you gotta do is try. Just try.
And everybody's been in your shoes at that point,
Yep,
so
absolutely.
gotta take the first plunge, and for me,
I can't wait till Barry Bot lets me play in one of her games.
I'm gonna dip my toes first.
I actually have some jitters about Saturday. Here's a group. My story is rock solid. Okay.
Mhm.
I've got a carload of shit I'm trucking over there. But there's still some anxiety because it's totally new people. Are they going to like my style and yada, 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 which is why I'm bringing over lots of props and toys to distract them.
So look at this.
Notice when I fuck up.
See, and this is why.
Look at the silly monkey. Look at the silly monkey.
This is why I love doing what I do.
Yeah,
that's so affirming, and so thank you, Torch. I really appreciate that, and I'm sure the other players would appreciate it because, it's not easy providing safe spaces for people these days. Barbarian strippers. You see,
Gary, it's a D&D bachelor party. I don't think it's that type of crowd.
But I mean, it's so challenging to create safe spaces for folks to come together as strangers, right? It's back to the friends and family versus strangers thing. It's not always easy. It's challenging, but it's not always easy. Orcs or bugbears and thongs don't work for me. I don't, I respect all pronouns, but orc pronouns and bugbear pronouns and thongs feel very uniquely disturbing to me.
I will say one other thing. The reality
Sarah's like, God damn it, get back on course.
I think I am DMing in a strange way. Let's put it back on the rails, guys.
Side arc.
No more orc strippers.
Nice.
When Barry says it, it sounds really dirty. So yeah, we should probably keep going.
All right.
Just keep going.
I will also say, it's a game. Okay. At the end of the day, it's a game. If you have somebody that is judging you that hard, you probably don't want to be at the table with them anyway, either as a DM or a player.
Yeah,
I have yet to experience a table that was like, oh, your DMing is so bad, you need to change it. Because if they did, I'd say, fuck off and find another group.
There's the door. Kick rocks.
Kick rocks. So you got to remember that too, is that everybody wants to be there. Everybody wants to play the game. And, to Jason's point, they've already given you the benefit of the doubt because you're running a game for them. So you have to, you have to take that into consideration to start your confidence off.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Wow, we actually got to the end of the list, guys.
That's the end?
Yeah, well, I do have some D&D modules that I saw that were pretty good for first-time DMs.
Yeah,
I have
go for it.
Yeah.
I have Waterdeep Dragon Heist. It's more of an RP and investigation focused campaign.
Yep, it's a good one.
There's the Ghosts of I don't know
Salt
how to
Marsh.
say words. Saltmarsh. It's exploration with sea travel.
Yep.
Oh, who would have thunk? And it's great it's a great tool for sandbox adventures. Maybe that's a little bit too intense.
No.
What do you guys think?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I guess so. And then I have Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden. It's a linear campaign and it's easily manageable.
Yep.
And I have down here Curse of Strahd, which is horror and hardship. All
and
around
with Halloween
easy.
coming up, Bear. That'd be great. That'd be a fun thing.
That would be fun.
I think we've even talked about maybe doing a themed one shot.
We did for Halloween.
Yeah, I think the Grain Lands group was talking about for Halloween. We were all going to dress up and
our characters.
Oh, I thought we were talking about that here too, weren't we? Doing a Halloween one shot.
Oh, yeah,
oh we're still gonna do it, Brian. No worries.
Okay.
Don't cry your milk, buddy. Don't cry.
I don't want to DM because DMing sucks.
So your direct message hang-ups.
Gary, you're going to DM for us.
Yeah, I don't know if you've got that one on your list, but Lost Minds of Fendelver.
That was.
I was just going to say that.
That's probably like the go-to. Whereas back in the day it was Keep on the Borderlands. This is probably the go-to start off.
Yep.
Yeah, easy to pick up and play.
Yep. Agreed.
So there you have it, folks. Do you have any closing comments or questions or concerns?
That chat was
Chat,
busy
let us
enough.
know.
Why would you let them do that?
I'm giving them the wheel. Any last words? How do you want to do this?
Any last words before I TPK you?
I will say, as a DM over the course of many years, the one thing, like a lot of people wonder why I don't do the one thing that Matt likes to do, which is allow the player to describe their killing blow. I get to do that. That's my fun. You know, that's, to me, that's the one kind of selfish thing I kept to myself. Players can do whatever else they want, however they want to narrate and RP and do their creativity. But I get to describe that killing blow because it's the one opportunity I get to kind of participate and kind of see if people are paying attention too. Because sometimes I'll do the description in such a way that they're paying attention. There's actually a hint in that descriptive at the same time. So like it's a fun way to kind of integrate my sense of fun in with the visualization of what's going on, you know. And that's a good point to, it's also a good point to create your own unique part of the game for you. Something in the game has to be a little bit about the DM, and make that your thing.
I'm so happy to hear that, Torch.
That's awesome. Yeah.
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 We should just do a whole episode where that's all we say.
I think we've had those. Don't forget what we coined, not non-player characters, but narrative player characters.
That's true.
I have so much fun doing. That's why I love shopping sessions, because that's when I get to play.
Yep. Narrative player characters are always fun for both sides.
Yeah.
I love Pumat.
Oh my God, he's awesome.
Well, I'm certainly glad that you love him, little girl. I mean, let's face it, Pumat's just kind of a creepy, slow-talking John Wayne.
I was just going to say, he's like D&D John Wayne.
He's a big, fuzzy John Wayne.
Well, hell there, little fella. You're just looking very tiny and green. The Pumat Soul interaction with, who was it? Not the Brave.
Yeah.
Is still a classic for me.
Oh my God, yeah.
I would say, and that's the
flask.
joy of this game when you really start playing it very regularly. I have a lot of snapshots of things that just were so fun to watch play out. But in the Critical Role space, I could name 5 things that always stick with me, like jesters using the muffin to resolve the encounter.
Yeah,
I think that was an amazing way to show players.
Charlie Crabgrass.
Henry Crabgrass. Yeah, Henry Crabgrass.
Oh, Henry Crabgrass. Sorry, Henry Crabgrass.
There are so many unique ways that you can resolve an in-game encounter.
Yeah.
That creativity comes out. And as a new or aspiring DM, focus on those little nuggets that pop out.
Have fun with it.
They can be very inspiring.
Have fun with it. It's a game. It's a game.
Yeah.
That's why people play D&D.
So are we rolling?
Yeah.
Yes, rollies. All right.
I have my toxic Rick and Morty dice.
I still have my it's actually the luck has changed on my little mini medal. And it has changed back. I got a 5.
I got a 4.
Oh wow.
I have an 8.
You go. Those are shitty rolls.
On the low rolls.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Lawfully Chaotic, where we get to talk about all things DMing for your very first time and just, have fun with it. Let loose in the wind, So thank you so much, chat, for joining us as well. You guys were awesome tonight. And as always, my name is Sharon, aka Barrybot. You could check me here on Instagram at Barrybot. Jason, where can we find you?
TTRPG Academy over at the Twitch. Check out our socials on our Twitch. And you can find us in our Discord and all the social spaces that we exist. Hey, Bri, where can they find you, Bri?
RPG&Co.com, both on Linktree and Instagram for all the rest of the stuff. Some of the stuff is Play RPG&Co, like my website, but generally Instagram is the best place to find me. I just want to mention we will be taking a break next week to work on some programming and see about lining up some guests. So we will see you in 2 weeks.
Yes. Oh, and one more thing to plug in. Be sure to check me and Jason. He's my DM for the Saturday campaign of the Graying Lands over on the Twitch, the D&D Club Twitch channel, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific time. Don't miss it out. Miss it. Wow,
Miss it
words
out.
tonight, guys.
Words.
Anyway, thank you, everybody. Have yourself a good night, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye, everybody.
Later.